Our music for centering this morning is Siciliana on the Call by Douglas E. Warner, played by Sarah Hager on organ. Good morning. Welcome to First Parish in Lexington. My name is Elizabeth Yoss, and I am one of the worship associates here. We are a Unitarian Universalist congregation guided by a doctrine of love. Whether you are joining us here for the first time or for the 500th time, whether you're here in the pews or joining us online, we hope that you'll find here questions that will stretch you, people to befriend you, and liberal religious values that challenge you, and that you will find many reasons to return. I have a few announcements this morning. The first is from the Members and Friends Committee, who will be updating the parish directory beginning today. So please go to the welcome kiosk, which you'll find during coffee hour through these doors here. And we want to make sure that there are corrections to your information and to verify that it's still accurate. It will take so little time and allow us all to communicate so much better. And when the project is complete, we will all have access to the directory online, or also you can get your own printed copy. Joan Clark is the contact person. You can find her email address and her phone number if you need to contact her personally. Oh, and she's also right here in green. So she will be at the coffee hour. Also, a message from our stewardship team, a reminder to everyone that we are in the midst of our annual stewardship campaign. Please make your pledges by March 24th. For more information, you can email stewardship@fplex.org or speak to our stewardship co-chairs Omar Kudari, Dave Mays, or Tom Rich. And that's all the announcements. Could you please take a moment now and just greet your neighbor? Well, let's see if we can get another one. There's one in a... I'll just share mine.
I need that because I need to announce that. Okay, is that about the right amount of time? Sorry. I didn't ever do that when I was minister here. Sorry if I shocked you. Oh. This is the opening words in a call to worship, and it's adapted from the great Unitarian minister William Ellery Channing, who really was vital in helping us shape who we are. The great end in religious instruction is not to stamp our minds upon others, but to stir up their own. Not to make them see with our eyes, but to look inquiringly and steadily with their own. Not to give them a definite amount of knowledge, but to inspire a fervent love of truth. Not to form in them an outward regularity, but to touch inward springs. Not to impose religion upon them in the form of arbitrary rules, but to awaken the conscience, the moral discernment. In a word, the great end is to awaken the soul, to excite and cherish spiritual life. And now we will have the introit, which is Let the Bright Seraphim by G.F. Handel from Samson with Yunona Tabala, Corey Crofoot, whom we welcome this morning for his first time as a trumpeter, and Sarah Hager, whom we're very delighted to have this morning.
For our chalice lighting this morning, I'd like to invite Ruth Rose, a member of our board, to help me light the chalice. My chalice lighting is titled, With Love as My Guide. Amidst the swirl of life's challenges, fears, and even moments of crisis, I make time to gaze at the night sky, to see the vastness there, and to remember that this moment in time is but a flicker. Not an inconsequential flicker, for what I do and think now does matter. My work, though, is to let the debris of this world pass by, while I anchor myself to what I know is true: love, kindness, compassion, and caring for this precious life, this precious planet, and all that calls this place home. This is my North Star, with love as my guide. How can I possibly go wrong? And now, won't you please rise in body or spirit and join me in the affirmation of our faith. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Our time of all ages is named A Conversation by Don Cohen. Grandpa.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Well, it's not really a question.
That's fine.
I think I'm confused.
About what?
Well, everything. I mean, when I was young, things seemed simple. I mean, I didn't even think about them. I just did stuff, but now, I mean, I keep thinking about doing something else instead, and I don't know, it's confusing.
In my opinion, if you're not confused, you don't understand the situation.
But I am confused, and that means I don't understand the situation either.
True. But being confused brings you closer to understanding than thinking you know the answers when you don't even know the questions.
I'm not sure this is helping.
Have you talked to your mom and dad?
Sort of.
And?
Well, they mainly have answers like, get more sleep, spend less screen time, which, really doesn't help.
Parents feel a lot of pressure to have the answers. If it helps at all, I'm confused too.
You are?
Have been all my life. More and more the older I get.
But I thought when you get older, you know more things.
Knowing things is what makes you more confused if you're brave enough to really think about what you know. When I was 18, I thought I knew everything.
But you didn't?
Not even close.
Well, what do you get confused about?
You name it. Big things, like why the universe exists. Little things, like why my friend Peter stopped liking me, if that is a little thing. political things, work things, why I can't find my glasses, why your grandmother married me, and what would have happened if I'd married Laura Buchanan instead.
Who's that?
A girl I once knew who's an old lady now who may not even remember me. Of course, if that had happened, you wouldn't exist.
Well, this is a confusing conversation.
Are you sorry you're having it?
Well, no. It's like I know even less than I thought, but maybe even more.
Exactly.
Am I going to be confused my whole life?
If you're lucky, be proud of not knowing and try to enjoy it.
So that's like your advice?
Take it or leave it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I want to take it. Probably. This whole thing is not going to be that easy, is it, Grandpa?
I'm guessing you're smart enough and strong enough to stay confused. So far, so good.
I hope you're right.
So, welcome to the world.
What?
Welcome to the world.
What does that mean? No, really. Like, tell me.
You'll figure it out eventually.
Now please rise in body and spirit. We're going to be singing our opening hymn, We Give Thanks, and the children can leave for their classes after the hymn. And now I invite a member of our Committee on Leadership and Service, Chanel Shellwater, for an announcement.
Good morning. On behalf of the Committee on Leadership and Service, today I'd like to acknowledge the work of the First Parish Personnel Committee. Would David Horton, the committee chair, Mia Roop, and Omar Kadari, who is up there in the balcony, please stand to be recognized. The Personnel Committee advises the board on compensation and benefits of the ministers and staff and provides guidance to First Parish committees on other personnel issues. Each year, they review and make recommendations to the board about contracts and employment agreements with all paid personnel, and they oversee the evaluation procedures used for ministers and staff. Recently, they reviewed and updated the Personnel Policy Manual, reviewed the Benefits Tune-Up Workbook from the UUA to ensure that First Parish is compliant and has all protocols in place to administer staff benefits, assembled a new employee onboarding orientation packet. They also conduct job searches, write job descriptions and contracts for all staff, and they provide staff anti-harassment training. The Personnel Committee's work is critical to the functioning of First Parish as they help ensure we have the wonderful ministers and staff that we do. And today, we thank the Personnel Committee for their efforts. And if you are interested in joining the committee, please be sure to reach out to any of its members. Thank you.
Each one of you, by your commitment of time and energy and resources, help make our grand vision of Unitarian Universalism real. A world filled with peace and joy and justice. The offering for the work of First Parish will now be gratefully received. You may point your camera at the QR code in the order of service or online. And if you're here in the sanctuary, our ushers will be coming around. Our offering music this morning is Sarabande by George Frideric Handel and will be played by Sarah Hager on piano.
I want to say a special thank you to Don for writing that story at my request, and to Don and Elizabeth for reading it. The reading this morning is from the English Jesuit poet Gerard Manley Hopkins. It is another way of looking at the universe. It's called Pied Beauty. Glory be to God for dappled things, for skies of couple color as a brindled cow, for rose molds all in stipple upon trout that swim. Fresh, fire coal chestnut falls, finch's wings, landscape plotted and pieced, fold, fallow, and plow. And all trades, their gear and tackle and trim. All things counter, original, spare, strange, whatever is fickle, freckled, who knows how, with swift, slow, sweet, sour, a dazzle, dim. He fathers forth, whose beauty is past change. Praise him. This sermon was inspired. I have to decide which way to do this. My eyes are very in between. This sermon was inspired by a lovely small needlepoint that my brother Lou Lutton, 2 years younger than I, a biology professor, made for me to my delight. Both of us recognizing that life's complexity is central to our worldviews. The needlepoint, it's about like this, simply reads, complexity. All of our growing up had, of course, been nurtured by the world around us. We grew up in a family of educators, everybody, aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins. Our father was a research chemist, a dedicated scientist who was always wanting us to understand the world better. Our mother was a teacher of American history who for 20 years taught her classes of 95% African American seventh graders about the white oppression of Native Americans and African Americans. The Encyclopedia Britannica made regular appearances at our dinner table, and I suspect I'm not the only one that had that happen. Early in their marriage, our parents started attending the First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati. Unitarians and Universalists had not merged at that point, where in Sunday school, we studied Sophia Lyons-Vaugh's amazing religious education curriculum. We studied early monotheists, like the Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaten, the Jewish tribe, and the Reformation Spaniard Michael Servetus, who was martyred by Christians. We had a course called How Miracles Abound, about the wonders of nature. We would go out and wander around and look at the trees and the leaves and whatever else was out there. And then we had the church across the street, now known as Neighboring Faiths, during which we visited services at a wide range of churches and temples. Then in my life came a variety of further educations: college, graduate school in Old and Middle English literature. Chaucer is still my favorite writer. Teaching, marriage and family, graduate school in ministry, then ministry. One of the greatest educations of all, in many ways. There are many ways to arrive at a thoughtful, caring, and complex sense of the world. My father always made that point. Professional schooling is not necessary. But given our family, there was no way Lou and I, with our experience, could not realize that the world was complex. And we also became aware that the universe in which we live is beyond our comprehension, that there's always more to learn. We knew, for instance, that human knowledge began in one solar system, in which life, all life that ever existed, had appeared and evolved. And gradually, that knowledge grew to include other solar systems, then galaxies, and now with the astounding pictures from the Hubble and Hubble telescopes. Don says, and I still don't believe this, trillions and trillions of galaxies. How could such a world come into existence? Well, as I became ready to write the sermon, two not-so-funny things happened on the way. Oh, right. I had put the needlepoint away in a drawer somewhere when I put out the Christmas decorations. I am not going to take you through the weeks last week when Don and I spent hours looking for it. It was, and still is, nowhere to be found. Lou, I promise I'll find it. This is what I call a complication, an event that really didn't need to happen, that isn't inherent in the universe, more a glitch. Were there too many drawers in our house? Maybe God didn't want me to give this sermon? How about the growing fallibility of an aging person's mind? Complexity and complication. No wonder life is deeply confusing, rich, and always challenging. Well, that was one not so funny thing. The second is that Yascha Mounk, the author of The Identity Trap, which I read and used liberally in preparing this sermon, was accused last week of rape. And Atlantic Monthly dismissed him from their list of contributors. As far as I've been able to discover since that news, it's still a story of he said, she said. But whether Monk is clearly guilty or not guilty or somewhere in between, I found his book extremely thought-provoking and informative. It is at its heart a defense of faith in universalism, of the possibility of humanity moving toward greater understanding, justice, equity, and hope. How do I put together these two things? Should I care about this book? Should I take knowledge from it? It's very complex. The book actually helped me to understand why I've been unhappy with the current Unitarian Universalist Association process of rewriting our principles and purposes. That unhappiness is another reason I chose the subject of complexity. It is painful to find myself in disagreement with my own faith movement. The revision, and I hope you've been studying it because I know the church has been having discussion groups about it and working toward it and planning for the vote in the summer. The revision puts the central emphasis on love. Though I have long recognized that the humanist, reason-based Unitarianism I grew up in didn't use the word love enough, and have been glad to have our denomination become more emotionally vibrant over the years, which indeed it has, I can tell you. And I certainly think of myself as loving many people and many things. One problem is that the UUA proposal, which makes love central to every value, doesn't attempt to explain that slippery word, love. I've always known that love was part of my faith because I experienced it in our congregation, and I experience it now in our congregation. Among other things, the adults loved us children and teenagers, and I knew it, in a way that truly supported our growing up. A way that Channing's opening words today advocate. But love is nearly as complex as the world. Just think of all the things some of us may say we love in the course of a week. My colleague, the Reverend Fred Wooden, wrote on Facebook, "I wrote a short book on love a few years ago, based on a series of sermons, worked on it many times. It still is inadequate." And this is a hard part, I have known that though you use believe in love, we were and are capable of classism, of feeling quite unlovingly superior to those who do not have all the advantages that so many of us have had. I remember having those feelings when I was a teenager, and I felt truly, deeply ashamed and depressed as I heard Hillary Clinton, a person of the class of many of us, call a large mass of Americans, and I really hate to say it, deplorables. And I heard coastal people speak of the flyover country. Classists like me have a lot to learn, a lot to repair in the world. The other problem with this central focus on love is that love empowers our efforts to create a better world, but it doesn't produce the other qualities and capacities we need to build the world we yearn for. To put such singular emphasis on this one slippery concept is to do what we as humans tend to do, to create an order in the complex world in which we can organize and label things, put them in clear, separate categories, simplify the complexity that confuses us. If we hold up love as the one thing that holds us all together, then we reduce the complexity of human nature in the world, in which many different values and qualities are central and indispensable. We declare a kind of purity that doesn't exist in the world. We do not celebrate, as Gerard Manley Hopkins does, the ways of the world that mix and mingle, that contain unpredictability beyond our imagination. I believe that there is truth in holding up love as a vital part of our faith. But today I want to hold up for us the rich complexity of the world and of humanity that is just as vital to who we are, to the vast and invaluable capacities that help us to pursue an earth that shall be fair and all its people one. And that's a line from our hymn, Turn Back. As individuals, as part of the complexity of the world, we contain these capacities in a multitude of possible combinations of breadth and depth, so that we can help each other work toward a human world that begins to actually live our vision, toward growing into harmony with what we most value, to what we call the divine in our weekly unison affirmation, in all its complexity. Reason, wisdom, selflessness, humility, courage. Courage is a big one. If you think about the people that we know have led us through the years. Generosity, appreciation, gratitude, empathy. Learning, knowing, teaching, mentoring, guiding, leading. Perspective, patience, determination, resilience, humor, How often are we saved by humor? Creativity, imagining, making art and music, designing bridges and buildings and cities. Some of the people who've shared these qualities are known throughout the world. Jesus, the Buddha, Gandhi, and look what's happened to Gandhi's vision in India in the last few years. Martin Luther King, John Lewis, Nelson Mandela, Harriet Tubman, Harvey Milk, Alexei Navalny. Many of these died for their vision. But there are billions more, famous or known only to a small circle, who have helped to build a better world for humanity. Such people have love for those they serve, but they also understand suffering. They listen and they learn. They sacrifice something of their own wealth and popularity and comfort so that others can live more freely, more comfortably, more joyfully. We know too well, however, that people can be selfish, abusive, and cruel, and blind to the suffering of others, hateful. We can be racist, misogynist, and rabidly patriotic. The very nature of our world, and how many places in the world does this happen, means that one person's gain is very often another person's loss. That's the complexity. We can strike out at another perfectly normal person. I no longer remember what it was that Martha Royce said to me at summer camp when I was 5 years old that made me scream, "Stink pot," at her. But I can still see that scene clearly, and I can feel the rage that I felt when I screamed it. And it turned to utter shame, shame that made me, for years afterwards, cringe. That rage is probably still here somewhere. And frankly, there are people in the world I cannot love, which is very sad. And still, I have a vision of a better world that I believe we all might share. Yasha Monk, author of The Identity Trap, argues forcefully against the movement called identity synthesis in current culture, which focuses on maintaining the safety of individuals and calls for people gathering and working in groups that are racially, culturally, economically homogeneous, where there won't be the microaggressions that hurt them day by day. He sees this movement as an abandonment of universalism, of the belief that people of different races, classes, religions, genders can move gradually, fitfully, painfully toward one another. That the world can and has, in fact, moved in many ways toward more justice and equity, and can continue to do so. That is our faith as Universalists. Monk argues that that possibility has largely emerged because we have traveled and migrated and mingled, lived and learned together. It is ever more possible with the extraordinary technological advances we've made in communication. Tim Berners-Lee, founder of the World Wide Web, was a member of First Parish when he lived in Lexington. And he had a wonderful vision of what the web would do. It would make healing communication instantly available around the world. Unfortunately, the complexity of the world and humanity has interfered with that vision. But in the civil rights era, which some of us are lucky enough to have lived in, we had a taste, however inadequate, of what our nation might be like without segregation. Monk urges us to move back to that spirit, to work together in spite of our differences, across our differences, to restore our learning and our hope. Now, of course, the hopes of the civil rights era, which I remember so vividly in my mind and my heart, seem at times naive and fruitless. Because Don worked as a writer, thinker, and editor for NASA for 10 years, we have had the blessing of learning a lot about the history of space exploration, including the International Space Station. I don't know how much you've thought about that. I don't think that the individual participants in any stage of that program so far start out in it because they love the participants from the other nations, or even from their own. As Don says, they love the sky. They start out in the program because of a desire to learn, out of a fascination with the nature of the universe, out of a sense of wonder and awe. They start out because they had capacities for many different kinds of knowledge and training and work that were relevant. They start out because they have openness, curiosity, and humility that helps them work with people from different, even hostile countries. I mean, it's really just extraordinary to think of them up there, Americans and Russians and Chinese and French and whoever else. They start out because it gives purpose and meaning to their lives. And because, yes, of their human ambition for recognition, because they believe in themselves and want to fulfill themselves. And because of these things, now all the people of the earth can begin to have access to the nature and the beauty of the universe. I mean, this picture just blows my mind. It's sort of so extraordinary. Because of these things, now all people of the earth can begin to have access to the nature and the beauty of the universe. Let it be part of our work to try to build a better, complex world on earth that we can export. You know, I know that the process of continuing to work toward the vision is much more painful and discouraging and demoralizing for those who are oppressed than for those who are privileged. That's just a fact. Here we are. I know that the privileged need to think and act with more willingness to sacrifice, a capacity that is not central to who we are. But joining together to fight for our vision is the only way we can make progress. Let us help one another. Let us help humanity. Let us now listen to our music with Yunona singing again and Sarah on piano, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, which I believe is a poem partly about human relationship and how we live in the world. Thank you so much. Let us join in meditation. Spirit of mystery, of wonder, of hope, let our minds and our hearts be still together. Let our gratitude for this world and for one another, nurtured now and over the years by those who loved us, cared for us, taught us, and set us free to be ourselves, lift us up and inspire us so that we can fulfill the possibilities within us. May we share with the world what is best in us, reaching out to those who need our support and healing, our gentle love and our tough love, and receiving support and healing in return. May we continue to draw strength from those who've gone before us, like our Universalist ancestors who fought slavery, believing that all people are one family. May we give thanks especially this day to Alexei Navalny and share our sorrow with his families and his compatriots in the struggle for justice, and with those over all the world who also seek justice and equity, freedom and peace. May we be glad that together we can continue to work for harmony in this extraordinary world. Now, I know that your order of service says that we're going to sing one particular hymn, number 17, but we're not. We're going to sing a wonderful gospel hymn anthem, We Shall Overcome. Yeah, it's tried, and maybe it's a little stale, I don't know, but I bet we can recall it. I bet those of us who were there can remember it. It is number 169 in the hymnal. Please let us rise and sing together.
We shall overcome.
that sets us free, and the hope that never dies, and the love that casts out fear, be with us now until the day spring breaks and the shadows flee away. Amen. Now please be seated as Sarah Hager plays Kleine Fuge in C by Theophil Forchhammer.